Right, hello everybody and welcome again to another live session. Now, today if you stay tuned, I'm going to show you 4 different methods of trying to get the outline drawing onto the watercolour paper. This isn't watercolour paper, it's normal paper at the moment. But how to get the outline drawing onto the watercolour paper by doing 4 different methods actually. We're going to go from freehand, the grid system, graphite, and that's putting graphite on the back of the printout. I'll show you what I mean in the bit for that one. Tracing paper as well as another one, but also don't forget, well, this is tracing paper but also trace down paper, which is a graphite back paper. So stay tuned, and I'm going to go through all them 4 things for you and some little ones in between as well on how to do all of this. But the first one I'm going to show you today is going to be working with freehand, and I'm going to kind of draw something like the image around here, just doing it by freehand, and how I tend to kind of work out the measurements and kind of proportions as I go along. Alright, now a little competition for you if you're interested as well. I do this every single Sunday afternoon. I know I may not be live next weekend or the weekend after. I may have a couple of Sundays off, we'll see. So this will be the 6th Sunday I've been doing this. So next Sunday it's going to be probably have a relaxing day, I think. To win a free PDF from me, free PDF step-by-step tutorial on how to paint whatever you want within wildlife that's on my list on my shop, then all you got to do is answer one question. The first correct answer, when I check at the end of this live session, will get the chance, well, not the chance, will win that free PDF of their choice. Okay, that's on my shop. Now the question is, everybody, get ready for this. Now, I started painting when I was 11 years old, and now, hang on, what was it? Let me think, 51. What was the first type of painting that I did? You know, what was the first type of painting and also subject, should I say, what I did? So you've actually got 2 answers there trying to get right. So the first type of painting and the subject, which I did. Okay, so first of all, here we go. Hello, Jonathan Brindle. Good to see you back on here again. Thank you very much indeed for joining me today. Hopefully you can see all this fine. Now I'm going to start off with these tree swallows. Now these are lovely, aren't they? They really are. I'm going to try and dedicate probably about 15 minutes to each individual technique, and we'll see how we get on. Now, how do I work out the sizes for anything like this? Depends on how big you want it to be for one. But if you want to do it exactly the same size, or just about the same size as what's on the printout, this is just, by the way, just a printout from my printer, just a very cheap printer setting. That's all that is, lot. And I use it for different things that way around as well. I don't want to spend a lot of money on ink. A bit tight like that. I know, don't tell anybody. So let's start off with, say, the eye. Now this particular eye, you can just about make it out on this printout. I know it's a little bit on the pale side, but this particular eye is fairly round, as you can see. It's as if pretty round indeed. So I want to kind of replicate that. But you got to think, well, how wide, how big is this eye? How are we going to measure it? We can get obviously a ruler if you want to do it that way around, or you can do it my way. We know a song about that, don't we? You can do it my way, and that's by using your thumb of your obviously the nail of your thumb like that, and the tip of the pencil. Now this is a mechanical pencil which I use. This is a Faber-Castell one, but I do have some very, very cheap ones which I use on a regular basis, which work to me just as good, to be honest with you. And this particular one, which is 0.5, same the lead width as that one, so exactly the same, and that cost me about 50 pence. This one was about £3, something like that. But the cheap ones are usually pretty good, and I got, well, 50 pence, so 2 for £1 I bought on those. So hey, you know, well, you know, you can't argue with that, can you? So how I'm going to start with that, I'm going to measure really the width of the eye using my thumbnail. You've got to have reasonable nails on this, so you can see where you've got to go. So something like that. So with the thumbnail to the tip of the pencil. And I wanted to think, well, where I'm going to put this eye. Okay, I'm going to put it probably, let's put it about there. So that's one mark there, and just kind of rough it out. That wasn't far off, actually, just in a little bit. Probably a little bit more there. Okay. And then you got the height of the eye. So I'm going to turn my arm around, so I might just block the view a little bit. So the height of the eye is going to be the same width, and that's going to be just about round, isn't it? I think it's about there roughly. Just down a little bit, about there. So now we've actually got 4 points to work from, and within those 4 points you can actually draw more if you want to. We're going to start roughing out a basic circle. Okay, so rough it out first of all very lightly with your pencil. Now if you're using a normal pencil, just a standard pencil, which I also use occasionally as well, I suggest what you do, get one which is going to be a 2H. Okay, so it's nice and hard. So when you use a 2H, you find with a 2H it's nice and pale. And one thing you don't want to be doing is pressing too hard just to the initial outline, because if you do press hard, then you find that it will damage the watercolour paper. As I mentioned, this is not watercolour paper, only because of the fact that, well, for drawing exercise we don't need it, not for this sake. But you do exactly the same process on watercolour paper. I'm going to make this slightly darker than needed so you can see it on the camera. So now you can see that. I'm going to zoom in a little bit actually. I'll tell you what, I'll just go in a little bit closer. Hopefully that's close enough. And fingers crossed, still focused. No, it's not. Bear with me. This is what I normally do when I try and focus a card up. There we go, that's got it. I know it's weird not painting today, it really is. So that's just the main ring, and then obviously within inside that ring I can see the patterns which are needed for the reflection. And this reflection within the eye, it's a bit of a funny shape really, isn't it? I'm trying to think, well, that's the centre, okay, and when you look at the photograph, from the centre to the outside or the inside of the eye, of the iris, about halfway is where the highlight disappears, which is where I've kind of roughed it in there. So the centre, outside edge, and about halfway across is where the highlight disappears. And then that comes down the bottom, something like that. It's a little bit darker where the highlight finishes. It doesn't finish right to the very edge, it finishes just inside the edge there. And that's what I'm looking at all the time when I'm drawing something out. So I suggest you do, when you're working on the drawings, keep looking backward and forward at that reference photograph. It's so important. What I also do, as everybody knows, I use a tablet, which is this one here. This is a Samsung one, which I tend to use. You probably get a lot of reflection on the camera here, so I do apologise from all my lights and stuff. So I can pinch into those details on, oh look, I've got another light there, look. Oh, you didn't see that one, did you? So I can pinch in right to those details, and I can do the same here, but the problem is if you touch the tablet, then obviously it's going to move around. So you have to hover over the top of it this way around. That's why when you got a printout, you can put your hand on it and try and get it as accurate as, you know, more accurate if you wish, trying to work out those measurements. Okay, so that's the main eye for the iris, and then we just got to put a little thin ring around the outside of that. Just a little ring. Got to put a ring on it. I'm not saying a word. No. Put a ring on it. Now if you want to catch any of my live tutorials or anything that I post, then you can do so just by subscribing to this channel. I know I'll keep going on about it, but if you click on subscribe down below and then the bell icon after you subscribed, just do it now. Go on, do us a favour, go on. And then anything that I do when I post a video on here, and also when I do go live, you should be notified, okay? Now mention these tree swallows. This will be another tutorial which is going to go onto my website, devonartist.co.uk. Okay, so we'll go onto there, and I'll make sure you got that on the screen actually so you can see it. See, I'm not prepared again today, am I? So bear with me a minute. Let's whack it about there. Oh, there you go. Why did that suddenly appear out of nowhere? Oh, it's magic, isn't it? It really is. So have a look at the website down there, and that's where it's going to go onto that, and also onto my Patreon channel. Just go on to Patreon, type in The Devon Artist, and you find me on there as well. So tomorrow there'll be a full video tutorial on how to paint these tree swallows, and also a bark texture. So what I've actually done, I've replaced the birdhouse or bird box with a tree hole instead, and I'm going to show you entirely on that video how I did that. However, also just out of interest, tomorrow on here on YouTube, I've scheduled a 14-minute video clip which I've put together on how I painted these tree swallows. So watch out for that. That's why you've got to click on the subscribe button and bell icon, because then you'll be notified when it's on there. Now, okay, I want to work out roughly how high the top of the head is on this. So The way I tend to do this, I can do it by going by the eye height. Difficult to say that, isn't it? So that's going to be one eye height about there, roughly. Okay. And, oh, that's so the actual height of the eye is actually 2. So this is the internal part. So the main iris, so it's going to be 1 to there. That's it, just there, look, just double check it. And 2, just to there. So now that, just there, look, roughly is the top of the head. You can double check it and triple check it as much as you want to. Then you can get an eraser and just take out that little bit of a mark there if need be. Okay, so that would be the top of the head. You can do the same as well. If I draw a line there, look, so you see what I mean? If I just draw that there, then we can work out the distance from there to there. And again, you could measure the width of the eye, for example. Let's use that as a measuring guide. And we'll go 1, which takes you roughly to about there. I'm looking for marks on the head, on the feathers that I can see. That kind of gives me a little pointer tool. And that, again, is about 2. So it's 2 of the iris widths, not the actual circle outside it. And that's going to be that same angle there. So you've got to get the same angle, don't forget. Probably from there. Actually, that's where it is there, look. And then the same again, which I think was about there. Yeah. So that's another mark I've got there as well. And then you can do the same again to the edge of the head there, look, just to that section. So how many eye widths is that? Go for the iris again. We'll go 1, which goes to about there, roughly. And then that's again 2. I know, amazing, isn't it, really? The good thing about drawing freehand as well is that once you've worked out all these measurements, then you know that everything's in proportion, and you can work out exactly how things are going to go. When I first started painting and drawing, as I said, when I was 11 years old when I first started painting, but I was drawing way before that, then what I did, I'm just going to bring that a little bit further, I think that's quite wrong there. I spent a lot of time just using a normal pencil and working on my method, which I basically just taught myself really. Working on the method there just a bit further along by doing it this way around. And that's how I kind of started working on the drawings. That's before things like the tablets came out and computers. I know, it's showing my age now, isn't it? So now that curve is too sharp. So I'm looking at the reference photograph again by the side of me. I'm going to bring it down a little bit, just smooth it out. This is why when you do this, you want to do it very lightly and don't press onto that watercolour surface. Because if you do, then you find you'll start to mark it. And because then you've got like an indentation within the surface, it's very difficult to kind of get that out and try to paint over the top of it. Okay, now we know the beak will start about the same area, but the thing is with the beak, it's my ruler. I'm going to go from the top of the beak, try and keep the ruler fairly level, okay? Where does that go? See the top of the beak just there, look, see that? That goes to, if you get the ruler level, just inside the eye. So if I go just inside the eye, keeping that ruler level, I know the top of the beak is about there. Got the idea? And then you've got to draw the beak in. Again, you can measure the width of the beak. You can think, well, how far is it from there to there? To the bottom of the beak. So you go, okay, that's that distance there. I'm going to measure that. All right. And that is about just over 3/4 of an eye, which we know is about the same measurement as this because we're taking exactly the same measurements. So that measurement down there is about 3/4 of an eye width, which is roughly about like that, and that's where the beak comes down. Alright, we know that the top of the gape on the mouth there on the beak, it's not a mouth, it's a beak. Well, it is a mouth, isn't it? It's a gape, which is why they're bright yellow for these chicks, so they can be seen to be fed. Show me your gape. And then you can draw that method in there, and you can see how far across that eye it comes. See, so that's roughly about the centre of the eye as you draw a vertical line down. Just to there. And that goes roughly, there you go. That's nearly level, that line, with the centre of the beak as well, just dipping towards the end. Got the idea? Right, so there we go. So I'll give us some ideas on how this actually works. Now, something I wanted to show you very briefly before going to the next method. If I just get a little bit of pencil, so that's basically freehand drawing, okay? If I get a little bit of pencil, like so, just lightly rub that on. I'm going to show you how to erase this pencil, or parts of. I'm not pressing on, this is a 9B soft leaded pencil. So there's hardly any pressure there, believe it or not. Now, there's different ways you can do this. One thing I've got here, which I've basically made myself, is some acetate. So it's just simple acetate. Now I've cut some little lines with a craft knife inside. So you can imagine doing this for when you're working on feathers, anything like that really, and just go over those little cutout marks, and you can start to reveal some of the sections underneath. And that's just another way of creating details. The other method you can use is what's called an eraser shield, which is one of these. I've not used this for a long time, actually, you can tell as well. So you can use an eraser shield, and as you can see, there's a lot of different patterns in there. So you can do the same thing again. Let's just do that little section there, shall we? And you can just move it, and you can erase that to basically take off that one little area. So this is really handy if you want to take out a highlight, say within an eye. That is what you would do to create a little tiny mark, and then obviously within that highlight you just draw around it, and there you go. So I hope that's giving you some general idea on how to work freehand and the way I tend to look at things, okay, and to work out the measurements, you know, that you've got to work from to get it just about right. Now let's do that last area there. So from the inside of the iris just to the edge of the other bird, that one there is basically, it's another eye width, would you believe, which is basically there, and that's where the other bird comes down just the top of the head here. Right, I think you got the idea of that. So that's freehand drawing to give us some general idea how that works. Now I'll have a quick look at the computer now. Hello from France. Hello, how are you today? Thank you for joining me today. Amanda, hello. Moira, hello. Paul from sunny but cold Scotland. Jonathan, oil painting. Is that one of your? Well, okay, that's one of the answers to the question, possibly. Well, not going to reveal till later. But good guess, Jonathan. Hello from Southampton Court. So Ellen, I got your name right this time, I remembered. For some reason I didn't get a reminder, but checked in just in case. Hi from Germany. Hello, Sunflower. Julie Andrew, hi, nearly missed again, and Julie Andrew again. That's clever with that acetate. Hey, I went all northern then again, didn't I? Aye, you can tell I'm from Chesterfield, can't the lass? Derbyshire. Born and bred. Strong in the arm, thick in the head. Anyway, right. So that's giving some ideas how to do freehand drawing, and by using a pencil, either a mechanical one, or by using a normal pencil like so. Thumbnail, make sure you grow that thumbnail a little bit longer if it's too short. If you keep biting them, don't. You know, put something on it and make sure it stops you biting it. And use that to measure those distances as you go around the subjects. And also, by the way, look at the angles. Okay, so look at the angles, make sure your reference photograph is nice and level, which this one isn't quite. That's better, that's it, stick it down. Okay, when it's nice and level, then you know if that's a slight angle there, for example, you got to do the same on there, and whatever else you're looking at. Look at those angles, get two rulers and stretching it, or two pieces of straight edge card, and then do the same on your drawing. See how I do it? So that's what I do when I'm working freehand, and that's how I've always done it all my life. All them, how long have I been painting now? Well over 40 years. So I'll give you some general idea. I've been doing it for all that time. Okay, right, so that's that one. Now I'm going to go on to the grid system. Oh, Julie, what's the question of the day? The question of the day is, what's the first type of painting I did? Not just the medium, you know, not just what I used to do the painting, but also the subject, the type of subject. So what kind of medium did I use, and what was the subject which I used? And that's to win the free PDF, as you know, this time around. Okay, so try and answer that question. I'll give the answer right at the very end, and whoever gets it right first for both accounts, by the way. So the medium, what did I use to create a picture, and also, I can't say too much, I know, and also the subject. Got the idea? Okay. Right, so that's that one. Now, the next one I'm going to go on to, we've done our 15 minutes or so on that one, haven't we? Is going to be the grid system. So bear with me a minute while I just switch things around. Okay, just to there. Now, the grid system is this here. Now, this is, I've made this myself, again, on acetate. You can buy the acetates fairly cheaply nowadays, and not too expensive. And this acetate is it's actually made for inkjet printers, which is our normal printers, I know. If you've got a laser printer, you need to get laser acetate, which is usually smooth on both sides. But this particular one is actually a little bit textured on one side to kind of take the ink when you print it out on that side. So you got to make sure you got it the right way around before you put it in the printer. Otherwise it's a bit of a smudge mess. Done that, been there, don't want to do it again. Okay, the idea is you print off your reference photograph. Again, I've done it on a very cheap setting, which is why it's so pale. You'll offer this grid over the top of that photograph, wherever you want to place it. Think of where you want some of the elements to be within there, okay? So in this case, what I'm thinking of, let's try and get the eye, which is just about visible in there, just in this corner of this grid, which is A1, I've numbered it. Just there, look, there you go. So if I get some low tack tape, this is that washi tape. Doesn't mean you've got to wash your clothing in it. Don't know why it's called washi tape. Any ideas, anybody? Questions on the back of a stamp, postage stamp, please, and I'll do my best to answer them. Just put that down there and get a little bit more tape there, just so it don't pop up. It's a bit curled, this one. Just like that. And how we're going to do it? We're drawing the same grid on the other side of the paper. So what you could possibly do is either offer the acetate. Where's my picture gone again? I'm back in a minute, hang on. I'm not gone very far. Over the top of the picture on there, and stick it down. Be careful not to move it, I know. So that can go onto your tablet if need be. Okay, so you can do it that way around, or you could put it over your printout, which I prefer to do if I do it this way for the drawing. So straight over the printout like I've done there, stick it down so it doesn't move around, make sure it's level, again like we did before, or just about level, and then all you simply do, this is a very easy method of drawing out, by the way, it really is, because you're just copying grid for grid. If you want to, you can number the grids 1, 2, and then we've got a missing one there. We'll go A and B. I've obviously numbered them wrong, but don't worry about that. And then we can start drawing out where all the elements are within here. I think what I might do, I can start with the eye, but I think I'll start with the top of the head here. What I like to do with anything like this, I like to kind of divide things into 10. So let's say, for example, that's your 5. And then you've got to divide this one into 5 as well, so kind of rough it first. Alright, so rough it first, so it's a little bit too much there, so you can measure it obviously with a rule and get it absolutely spot on if you want to. So there's another 5 there, okay, and then you can do roughly the same going down. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, it's a little bit too much there, isn't it? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, that'll do. That's near enough. So you basically, the idea is you split it into 10. You can put light, faint ruler marks as well. Now when you draw this out onto a watercolour surface, you've got to do it with a soft nib pencil. This one, as I mentioned, is a HB, but it's a 0.5 nib, so it's nice and light, it's nice and fine. And I can just apply just a very light amount of pressure so I can just see where that line is. And that means that I can just simply erase that away without damaging that watercolour surface. So that's what you want to do. Don't press on with your pencils, whatever you do, okay? Now, imagine that's 5 over there, so that's halfway. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 up, okay? 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So you're going to go 5, maybe 6 high. So in a 0 grid, there's your 5, and there's your 6. So that roughly is the top of the head. That was easy, wasn't it? Just to get to that top little mark there. Very easy. So we'll do the same along the bottom of this line now. So imagine that's 5 there. So that'll be roughly about 4. So 5, and it's basically 1 back. Looking at the gaps I've roughed out there, so that's about there. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, a little bit more, probably about there. And then we've actually got to think about the curve. Keep looking backward and forward, backward and forward, backward and forward of that photograph. get the curve of the head coming down, and that is already the top of the head drawn in. See how quick that was? Very, very quick. Now I can see just the top of the beak appearing about here, so I'm going to start bringing that down. Look at the angle. Remember what I said about using rulers just on the top of the beak there as an idea. So I'm going to get this ruler lined up with this one now. Just rough it, okay, something like that. Then you've also got a little thin line there we can use to work on to add that little tiny beak. Now within grid B we can think, well, that's probably 5, and that's going to be roughly about probably just 1.5 down. So 1.5, roughly about there, and that's roughly where that comes to about there where the beak finishes. So roughly about there. It's got a bit of a round tip to it as well. Okay, so that, excuse me, knocking the microphone. So that is the way you can draw out just by using the grid system. Very, very easy. And the beauty about doing the grid system as well is that you can make it as big or as small as you want to. It doesn't matter, does it? Because you're just copying from one grid to the next. So if you want to make this 1.5 times as big, you can do, or 10 times as big, you can do. And that's a really good way of trying to get your measurements accurate and the proportions about spot on. Now I'm going to carry on a little bit more with this now. Now I can see the top of the gape just peeks over the top of this line here a little bit, and then back down again, just disappears under the line. Then we've got the nostril, which appears about there and in. Now the same applies to the bottom part of the beak just there. That's probably about 1.5 down, so that's 1 roughly to there and about half. And again, I'm looking at the angle of this. It's got a bit of a slight, very slight curve on there, just something like that. And then between those two areas where the center of the beaks go is not equal. The top one's slightly wider than the bottom one, so I'm going to add that one in there and then start to draw that one up. It's a slight uphill curve and then comes down towards the tip of the beak. So far. And coming in that way, we've got about 1.5 in there again, and then that one comes in to about there. So that's how easy the grid system can be. I'll have a quick look on there. Okay, so we got that there. Yeah, acetate is really useful there, Jules. So if you've got an inkjet printer, which most of us have, then you find it's quite useful to kind of print things on, especially when you print something like this. Now I know on Patreon I've provided this as a downloadable, so if you do join up at the $5 level at some point on there on my Patreon website, then make sure that you download this. Okay, it's one of my little tutorials on how to use obviously the grid system, how to kind of work with a grid system. I'm just going to do the eye. Now again, I want to work out roughly how high that is. That's your 5. That's about just under halfway. So again, if you just do it this way, so that's your 5, and that's halfway there. So that's just under halfway, probably about there actually. And that's where the top of the eye roughly goes. The same going out to this side. You can see why I position the eye right on the corner here, so I can see where it's got to go. And again, when you work it out, think about that square, that box there. So this one's pretty round, this eye, and that goes to about there. So now we can start drawing in, just kind of rough out a circle within this eye, something like that. Okay, rough it out. Turns out to be spot on at this point. You can fine tune all this once you have all the elements in place, you know, and the highlights and everything else that you can see within there. And there you go. What do you think to that then? So that's how you would do the grid system, how it basically works. Let's have a quick look. Thank you, Sunflower. I googled the tape. It's called washi tape because it's made of rice paper, and I believe washi is a Japanese word for rice paper. I didn't know that. I've just called it low tap masking tape. Thank you very much indeed. That's very kind of you to research that and find out. So you can see the way that the grid system works and how easy it can be to transfer anything of whatever size you want to do it onto a paper. So if you've got a commission or a large painting that you want to do for yourself or for somebody else as a gift or present, whatever it might be, Then if they only provide a small photo, you can draw this grid system out just by placing that over the small photo, but the same amount of grids, obviously, because I've only got those grids there, as you can see. But you can make it as big as you want and draw it as big as you want within, obviously, these grid. As long as you get the accurate, you know, how many 5 down, that's about four down, or 6 up, or whatever you want to call it. As long as you get that all spot on, this can be a great way of kind of making the pictures much bigger. Okay, so that, I dare say, is a grid system. Hope you enjoyed that one. Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to have a quick drink of coffee in a minute, just for 2 minutes, and for the 2 minutes I'm going to show you what we're working on the Devon Artist website and also on Patreon this month, and what my members are doing, because normally I paint, as you know. It's just weird not having my paints here, it really is. But I'll show you what I mean, so just bear with me just for 1 minute. I'll be here for 2 minutes, okay? Won't be long. Hi, my name is Paul Hopkinson. Now here are some video clips from my main video tutorial on my website on how I painted a realistic looking bumblebee on some violet flowers. Let's get started. So that will give you some ideas on how I painted a realistic looking bumblebee on some violet flowers. So if you fancy having a go at painting this, why don't you pop along to my website www.devonartist.co.uk, have a look at the link down below, join now on a monthly or annual subscription and give it a go. And don't forget, I've got over 50 other video tutorials as well, so you can get painting straight away. I'll see you there. Right, thank you for watching that. Well, welcome back again. Now, ready for the next one? Now the next one is going to be about putting graphite on the back of the printout and how to kind of trace that through. You can use tracing paper, we all know about tracing paper. And tracing paper, I haven't got one here at the moment, but I've got some in the cupboard knocking about. All you would do is offer the tracing paper over that reference photograph, draw around the outline, okay? Then you would turn the tracing paper over, this is the way I used to do it. And then you see the outline on the back of the tracing paper, and you go over that outline again on the back of the tracing paper. When you turn it back the right way around, you can then go over the lines again for the third time, I know, and then you can trace that detail through to your watercolour surface. So that's how you can trace out using tracing paper by, again, trace over the outline, tracing paper, remember. Kitchen paper works quite well as well. Yeah, I can't remember what it's called, but you know the one. So you can trace out that way around, turn it over, come on Paul, this is as if it was tracing paper, draw over the back of your lines that you've drawn, turn it back over again, and then draw over again, and that will trace that image onto your paper. So that would be tracing paper. Now in this case, what we're going to do, I'm going to show you how I would do this using graphite on the back. This again is a method I used to use many years ago, which it is. So you're going to turn it over. This is before the advent of tracing paper, and well, I'll say tracing paper was out then, but more of the graphite paper more than anything. You get a soft leaded pencil. Now this one is a 9B. This is a Derwent one, which is quite a nice one. So 9B, so it's very soft. Now you have to remember, by the way, with your pencils, stretch over there a minute. These are the ones, I've had these for many years, I really have, and you can tell by the state of the box. But they come in a lot of ranges. If you don't know much about pencils, they come as a hard lead. Put that one in there a minute. From, where's my 2B? Or 2H? Oh, that's that one there. Okay. They come from a hard lead, from a 3H, get me inaudible, to a 2H. So 3H, 2H, then you got H and HB, which is your normal kind of standard lead that you get on a pencil. That's everyday pencil lead normally. 2B, 3B, 6B, there's a 5B there, so that should be the other way around. 4B, so they go all the way up. No, in this case, they go all the way up to 9B, in my case anyway. You can still buy softer leaded pencils if you wanted to. But you really want just a soft leaded pencil like this. And this, all you would do, imagine when we used to do rubbings as kids. Remember that? We used to go over plaques and all sorts of things with some paper and a pencil or piece of chalk or wax crayon. You know, remember that? I used to do that. I used to love doing that. And do the rubbings. That's all you would do on the back of this one. Just rub on the back. Keep going, keep going, keep going. Long process. But use a soft leaded pencil and you don't need to press on. Don't go really press hard. Just do it softly. Okay. And remember, you'll need to do this on a cheap print setting as well, on just some normal photocopier paper. And that way, it could be thin enough to transfer through. Now if I just turn that around that way now, I'm going to do the same this way now, just make sure there's plenty on there. And you see why you need to have a soft leaded pencil for this. Keep going, Paul. Oh, it's like watching paint dry. There we go. Right. So, I'm going to place that down there. I'm going to get some tape. Okay, some of my rice paper tape. Thank you very much indeed. Sunflower. I'm going to place that around, I don't know, wherever you want it on the paper. And make sure your tape sticks. Let's get a little bit more. If anybody's wondering what I did there, I burnt myself on the oven last week. There you go. I'm doing a cheese and ham toasty. Yeah. I don't know, what am I like? So place it on there with some low tack tape. If it's too tacky, the tape that you've got, what I do, I take it across my trousers or something like that's not too bobbly and too fibrous, and just take a little bit of that tack off before you put it onto your paper, especially on your watercolour surface. You don't want to damage your paper by putting loads of tape on. And then all you need to do, put a few odd reference marks around it. This then enables you to reposition the printout. Do this very lightly. I'm hardly pressing on at all with that. So that means that I can just put it back in position again if I forget to trace something out. And then you can start to use your lead just to trace out the outlines that you need onto the watercolour surface. But you can probably hear I'm using not a light pressure, but it's also not, I'm not pressing too hard. I'm not pressing like this on my hand. Well, I'm not pressing on my hand at all, but I'm not pressing really hard onto the reference photo. Just do it gradually. Something like this. And then just make sure that you go over it nice and evenly. See how much that is? That's a 0.5. See, it happens to me as well. I do get through quite a few leads actually, I really do. And we've got an eye there. A little bit of a highlight in there as well. I can just make out the eye here. You probably can't see that on the camera. Then all the way around, top of the head on this one. Take more time than I'm doing though. Just take your time getting this outline on. Don't try and do it quickly. I've got a time limit today. You don't. You don't have a time limit at all. And then do the same on this one. Now every now and then, if I just peel off this tape a little bit, and that one as well, you can have a quick peek underneath. Make sure that the top tape stays put, and if it doesn't, remember we've got our reference marks to reline it all back up again. And you can see how much is transferred through by using the pencil on the back. As I mentioned, it's got to be a soft pencil though to do that. And we'll carry on again. Any questions on there? Let's have a quick look. Good try, Julie, good try. I'm not saying a word, thank you very much indeed. So remember everybody, the question of the day is what's the type of painting I did, and also what medium did I use? So it's 2 answers you got to give to win a free PDF tutorial, downloadable tutorial from me, which you can choose for yourself on my website, okay? You're more than welcome. And as my members know, on my Devon Artist site and also on Patreon, that my tutorials are very in-depth. There's a could be 30 or 40 pages worth of information there for one tutorial. It depends on which one you choose, obviously. So it's well worth noting that. So it's something well worth kind of winning. And if you don't win it, don't worry. You can always pop on there and have a look, see what we've got. And at the moment, by the way, we have got a discount going for this virus problem we've all got. Well, not physically, but you know what I mean. While it's all going on, we thought we'll give a good discount for all the PDFs at the moment. So all it simply is, if I can just show you what that is something like this, which is that, okay? So that there, let's leave that there just for a minute. I'll take it off again, don't worry. Is 50% off. Just use that code that you can see. So it's the hashtag code you can see, stay at home. Hashtag stay at home. And then you get 50% off my PDF lessons, which you can download and use when you want to use them. And just be prepared, they're quite lengthy. There's a lot of information in there, which I'll go through for each individual one. And a lot of them, not all, but a lot of those are taken from my video tutorials as well, which my members also get every month. So for example, the bumblebee on the violet flower you saw earlier on, my members get a copy of that PDF document as part of their membership, okay, on both my Devon Artist and my Patreon pages. Okay, right, and that's every month I do that, so they get plenty. So just going around the eye. As I say, you want to take more time than this. If you haven't got a mechanical pencil, by the way, again, remember what I said about the pencils on here. Go for hard-leaded ones, so like a 2H, something like that one there maybe, or a 3H pencil. So if I just poke that one out a minute. So a 2H pencil, and then you could use that. Make sure it's got a decent sharp tip on, so you need to make sure you sharpened it first. And they can use that to transfer that image through. You just want something with a good tip on it. You don't want it too soft for transferring through. You can use a biro over the top, believe it or not, but you find a biro's got a bit of a round tip, hasn't it? So you might find it's too, I don't know, too thick a line when it transfers through, really. But I have used it that method as well. Okay, just along the top. So if you've got any questions you want to ask, then please do so. That's why you got me here live today. Now this, as I mentioned, might be the last time for 2 or 3 weeks I'll be live. Just so I can have a bit of a break on a Sunday afternoon, that's all, even though I enjoy doing this regardless. Just so Joe and myself can probably do some, well, I've got maintenance to do. I didn't want to say that, I've got maintenance. Yeah, with a capital M, I've got things I need to get on with. Okay. Right, so now that should just be about transferred through. We're just about to our 15-minute time, as you can see. So again, so I'll put a little bit of a highlight in there, just where that goes there. Alright, and we're missing an eye. It's got to be there. Can I see through one eye at the moment? So that goes there. I can just about make out my marks on there where the eye goes, and a bit of a highlight just inside that one as well. And there you go. And then all you need to do, if you want to do this as a pencil drawing or a graphite drawing, you just simply go over the top then with your good pencils obviously and work from that, and just fine tune any edges. Like this one there's a little bit too sharp, so it wants to be rounded a little bit more. And there you go. So that's how to use the system where you put graphite on the reverse side of the paper like that. And as I mentioned, make sure you make these little reference marks around the paper before you start, and I can just reposition them back up again. Just put them back up You probably saw that off camera there. There you go, that's better. So where these little marks are there, look, I can just reposition those probably about there. Is that about right? Something like that, isn't it? And then I've got some down the side as well, so I want to make sure they're spot on. So you can see these down here, down the side here, and obviously on the other side as well. And that's what I would do. Right, is there any questions there? Oh, I'll take this off, sorry about that. Completely forgot about that. What's your opinion on light boxes for transferring images? I do have one actually. I do have one. They work really well, the light boxes. I don't mind them really. I think they have their place, and it's something which I do use occasionally as well. It depends on what you're trying to transfer as well. I find that if it's a dark image that you got printed off, then you might find, I'm just moving around here a minute while I'm talking to you, you might find that the dark image might not print off properly. It might be too dark to kind of put on a light box and see all the detail through it. And also when you offer paper over the light box, you want to make sure that the paper is quite pale, it's quite transparent. So you want a low weighted paper. Now most printer papers I find are 80 grams, I think it is, but you can get thinner paper than that, something like a 60 gram paper, and that's going to be quite thin, which is ideal. Not rice paper sort of thing, not washi tape, but quite ideal really for putting on a light box or transferring an image through. But yeah, they have a place. I'd say I've got one here which is really good, which we enjoy using, so I can't complain really. Any other questions on there? What's your opinion on light boxes? I've got that. I use a light box and really like it. Yeah, as I say, light boxes are good and they're really good for transferring the image through and trying to get it right. But what you would normally do, I would normally transfer it onto a sheet of thin paper and then transfer that drawing onto the watercolour surface and do it that way around. Obviously the fewer times you got to draw onto that watercolour surface, the better it is for you. It really is, because it's going to be less damage to that watercolour paper. Oh, and by the way, just out of interest, that at the moment is on our bird camera, and these are little chicks that you can see within there. Just about make them out, and they're little great tit chicks. That's what they are. Just about make them out. When they start getting fed, I'll give you a shout and let you know. I'll keep it. Oh, there you go. And there's Mrs. So that's what we're watching one of our cameras at the moment, and that's out of all those cameras there. There you go, our wildlife cameras. All the way to house martins, which we've got there as well, which is mudded up. One little area just there. There you go. Right, just something off topic. So that's one thing we've been through there. We're going to go now to trace down paper and how that actually works and what to do. Okay, ready? I'll go and get my little bits and bobs here for you. We'll switch to that one. Okay. If I just zoom out a little bit on this now. See, normally I do this off camera, and I'm going to focus the camera up a little bit just while I'm talking to you, so it doesn't always maintain focus. Okay, trace down paper. How does it work and what do we do? The thing with trace down paper as well, you've got to make sure, if I just get the image a minute, that there's different types of trace down paper I find. So when you got your image like that, you find some trace down paper tends to be a little bit too much graphite on. So when you transfer it through, it coats the paper in graphite, doesn't it? Just as soon as you put your hand on it like that. No! But all it simply is, trace down paper, if you've never used it, is this stuff here. Graphite backed, that's all it is. Okay, remember those old copy books? We used to have the little sheet of copy paper, the ink one underneath between the sheets. That's what this is like, but it's just pencil on the back. So you got the shiny side and you got the kind of pencil side, which is, yeah, this isn't too bad. I've used this many times. As you can probably tell on the camera there, all the little marks on there, lot. I've used this for, well, a few years now, and I got a few of these knocking about. All you would do is place it between your printout off your printer and the watercolour surface, like so. That's it. Job done. I'm going to bed now. Job done. No. So you place it between the two, and then you get your pencil and start transferring that image through it. So let's start off with the little one down the bottom here. Just a little bit more. And going to rough that line in there. I can see the eye there. It's not quite round, that one actually, it's a little bit more of an oval shape. We've got some of the lines coming down. You find actually, when you're painting birds and dogs, cats, anything like that, you find a lot of the time, right from the middle of the forehead, you've got more or less a vertical line through, just about, or straight line, straightish line, and then they branch off to the left and the right. And that's how this goes here, as you can see. So they've got this line going through the middle, and they branch off to the right and to the left hand side for those lines. And that one goes to about there. We've got another eye here. Can't really see much of a highlight in that one. And then down towards the gape just here. Now we don't get tree swallows where we live here. We actually just get normal, normal swallows as I call it, which we've got. We haven't got any on the house yet. We've got house martins. I've just shown you with the house martin boxes there, but we haven't got tree swallows. Nothing like that here in the UK. Just normal swallows, which are lovely to watch anyway, and swifts as well. We've just seen some in the village the other day actually. They've all returned back from Africa. See, there goes the lead again. I don't mind the lead breaking, to be honest with you, because the lead is fairly cheap to replace. And then work it around. Now if I just double check this, you can always tell if you're adding enough pressure. Again, what I'm going to do is add on just a few little lines before I start lifting any paper, just so I can line it back up again. Just very lightly do that, as I said, and you can see now already the image transferring through. Now the quality of this one compared to, I'm going to get the one for you in a minute, the one we did on the graphite back paper, which is this one. Look at the difference. You can see, just take that out of the way a minute, and that one there. There is I can't quite get it all on camera. So there's that one there, look, there you go. And then we'll quickly switch to that one. This one's definitely sharper, definitely more defined by doing it that way around. So that's why graphite paper, or trace down paper it's also known as well, and probably some other names as well. You can buy the cheap version, which I've got here a lot, just all this stuff. Look how dark that is compared to this one. I know I've used this one quite a few times, but that is full of pencil. And what will happen, as I mentioned before, just take that one out of the way. If I put my hand just on the side of that, you find, didn't do it then, you find as you're moving your hand around, it starts to leave marks on your paper. See that? It's because I just basically did that as if I'm moving my hand to draw. So you've got to be careful really when using graphite back paper. And if you do get that mark, what I suggest you do, don't use a normal eraser, use a putty eraser instead, and just very lightly lift that pencil off by tapping it like so. Okay, and that's how you would take that pencil off. It's getting a bit stubborn on this normal paper, on the watercolour surface. I'll leave that there. So slide that back underneath and we'll carry on. So a little bit about the transfer paper and how it basically works. But as I mentioned, before you do anything like this, make sure that you put little reference marks around beforehand so you can reposition again, like I told you about earlier on. Okay, and then that's that one there. We've got a slight outer ring as well. So once you take this off, then all you need to do is just fine tune your lines a little bit more. But at least you know that those lines will be fairly accurate, as in proportion, and the placement of those lines as well. Now I know some people think that doing something like this could be a way, people class it as being cheating sometimes, and other people don't. I don't class it as being cheating. I do use this within my video tutorials. I can draw freehand, there's not a problem in my case, but if you want to practice freehand, I suggest you do so, because it's a really good way of kind of getting that hand-eye coordination going, and just get used to trying to look at a painting, look at a photograph in fact, actually more than anything, and work out where things go, look at the angles, look at the distances. So freehand drawing is important to learn if you can. But if you find that your drawing abilities are not up to scratch, but yet you want to paint, and you want to get to that painting stage sooner rather than later, then using transfer paper, or graphite back paper if you wish, is a much easier way of doing so. And that's why I do it with my video tutorials, because I'm teaching people to use watercolour and to paint obviously wildlife in watercolour to obviously fine details. But to do that, the only way I can do that really is by tracing out that image first by using graphite paper. Okay, so there you go, that's my kind of reasoning behind it really on how it all works for me. And that's about there. Then we've got just a bit of an eye there. Just do this one with you. Got a few more minutes just to very lightly trace out these images here. Bit of a frown going on there. And then let's just do this little beak. Just about there. Don't forget the nostril. So if you're painting a cat, a dog, any animal, or anything really within reason, you know, anything where you can do this with, then it's a very handy method just to get the outline down onto that paper quickly. So you get straight, as I said, to the painting process, which is very, very handy. A little bit more around there, and then we can add the kind of ring around the edge of this. Rough it, because obviously that's 3 times now. This is going to be wood texture, so I would add wood texture like this underneath. There you go. And this will transfer through, as you can see, 4 times. All the way through. I do like my mechanical pencil, but the leads do break quick when it's a 0.5 one. You might have yours as 0.7, which is a little bit thicker, but that works just as well. In fact, there's less chance it'll break as well, actually. And there you go. So if I take that off, remember I can reposition this if I need to. You now have the outline ready to start the painting. See the idea behind that? So that's what you would do using transfer paper or graphite backed paper. Now, is there any questions on here? I'll have a quick look on there before I call it a day in a bit. That's alright, Sir Ellen, no problem at all. I hope it's helped. So that's 4 different ways of how to get the image on the paper. So you can use the freehand method I mentioned, which, if you recall, is that one there. Okay, so that's your freehand one. You can use, bear with me, you can use a grid system as well, which, if you recall, I'm searching around here and bashing things around, so bear with me. The grid system like that, using some acetate you can print off. Again, remember with acetate, if you've got an inkjet printer, which most of us do have, you want the rough sides, like a bit of a textured side, to print onto. Now, as I mentioned as well, this is available, the printout, the actual image for this, which I've made on my Patreon site as well, okay, for you to download. Right, so that's that. I may have done it on my downloadable, if you subscribe to my newsletter as well, I may put it on that one. The graphite reverse one we did as well, if you remember, which is this method here. Alright, by obviously using a soft leaded pencil like a 9B or something like that, or 6B, anything like that, just to very lightly go over the back. And then the final one we did with this one is a trace down paper. Remember, so shiny side down, and trace down. So shiny side down, it rhymes out, doesn't it? Okay. Right, so it's alright, Maureen, no problem. Amanda, thank you, Paul. What is your personal preference? To be honest with you, Amanda, my personal preference with anything is to do it freehand. But I don't do that on the videos because it just takes too long. It makes far too long a video. When you think our videos on Patreon and on my Devon Artist website tend to be the main videos, this is though, not the short video ones, which I do as well, as you know, for the botanical and so on. They tend to be for sometimes 5 hours long, and that's with having a pre-drawn image. I'll just kind of rough out, you know, how to draw it out in the first place using transfer paper. But I mean, it's down to individuals really how they want to get the outline on the paper. You know, I don't see if there's a right or wrong way. It's whatever's suitable for you and whatever you find, you know, you're happy with doing. And that goes with anything in life, really, doesn't it? It's like with watercolours, you know, to me there's no right or wrong way. Or there is in a sense, the right way is the way you like to paint. And that's the way I always see things like watercolours. Okay, so there's a lot of die-hard people, which is fine, you know, everybody's got their own ways of painting, which is not a problem at all, who prefer to work in the more traditional method, but I'm not a traditionalist in the way I tend to paint or draw. Okay, so there you go. That gives some ideas on how to do that. Now, you ready for the answer to the competition? Because it's just about time to go now. The question was, what's the first type of painting I did and what kind of medium was that painting? Now, I'm going to scroll through. Well, before I do, I'm going to give you the answer so there's no bias or anything like that. I started painting obviously when I was 11 years old. I started painting in oils. Okay? And I did landscapes. Now, has anybody got that? Oils and landscapes is the answer. So I'm going to scroll through now and see if anyone's got oils and landscape. Oil painting. Jonathan, you were halfway there. Good try. Hello from Pennsylvania, USA. Hello, Amy. Jonathan, let's have a quick look. Sunflower, I googled it. Yeah, I got that one. No, nobody. Oils and... Oh! Sue Ellen. Sue Ellen, you got it. Well done, you. Right, what I suggest you do, go to my website down the corner there, devonartist.co.uk. Send me a message, an email, a carrier pigeon, anything like that you've got. And just get in touch with me that way. But before you do so, pop onto my shop for the PDFs that you see on there and let me know which one you would like me to email you. So I need your email address, obviously. Just send me your email address, which I'm sure you will. You know, I'm a pretty honest person. And I will email that PDF back to you. Okay, I'll do that today. Alright, might be this evening, but I'll do that today for you. And then you can have a go at painting whatever you choose. Just as a freebie from me. Alright, so there you go. Right, one last thing, everybody. If you enjoyed this, please click on that subscribe button down below. Okay, and then click on that bell icon. And don't forget as well, with anything that I do, you can subscribe to my newsletter on my website as well. So you can go on there, subscribe that, and you also get another free PDF. I know. So that one's of a house sparrow I've painted. So just subscribe to the newsletter. And if you fancy following my video tutorials on my Devon Artist website down there, .co.uk, then I've got 2 videos on there, free for you to use. All you got to do is sign up for the free membership, and then you can have a play with painting a robin in watercolour. I'll give you the outline drawing and the reference photograph for it, as well as a bee eater, so a bee eater bird in watercolour as well. Okay, so until next time around, I'm going to say goodbye. I'm going to leave you one last thing as well. The video, a short 2-minute video clip on how I painted these tree sparrows, so the tree swallows, I got it wrong then, and how I painted these tree swallows in watercolour and in detail. So it's a 2-minute video clip, and the main video will be out tomorrow on Patreon and on my website for everybody to do fully all the way through. So that's it really. I will see you all again another weekend. It may not be next weekend. I'm going to have a break for next weekend and probably the weekend after. But the next time I join you again and we all group up on here again, what I might be doing beforehand, just out of interest, is obviously another live session, but we might have a paint-along session. So I'm going to choose one small element of an animal or something like maybe an eye, a beak or a mouth or a nose or anything which people like to try and paint and find difficulty with, because I know from my members there's certain things which people do have difficulty painting. And we're going to have a paint along together, so I'll post something on my Facebook page and people are going to say, Paul, what's your Facebook page? I'm not going to tell you. Yes, I will. Now my Facebook page, out of interest, if you have a look on there, look, there you go, just move it over that side. Third one down, facebook.com/the Devon Artist Paul. Go on to that. So facebook.com/the Devon Artist Paul. Pop on there and I'll post something a few days beforehand when I do decide to do this paint along with Paul session, and we will go ahead and do that. Now I think that was Julie that suggested paint along with Paul, so thank you very much indeed, Julie. It's very kind of you, I've not forgotten. Okay, so until next time around, I'm going to say goodbye and enjoy yourself and take care of yourself, okay? Bye for now. Hi, my name is Paul Hopkinson. Now let me show you some clips of my main video on my website. How to paint some very cute looking tree swallows and also textured bark. Let's get started.